awesome. Thank you.
Hey, you guys, and we are live. Woo! Glad you guys are here with me today. Hope you enjoyed that little dance music that you got to listen to, and you're just sitting out and you're jamming. Today's a really exciting day. We are going to be chatting with Steve Van Logerenberg. Now, I know so many of you guys are wondering, what do I do about health insurance? Maybe you were a teacher and you left what you thought was that comfy job to become a tutor, and now you're like, well, but I don't have my own health insurance. What do I do? Well, those are going to be the answers that we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be chatting about how private health insurance works, how to shop for private health insurance, and how to apply for private health insurance. And we'll also be building in any of those questions that you have. So today I have invited Steve Van Logerenberg. Now, if you guys notice, Steve has the same last name as one of the members in our community. Yep, and this is Nancy's husband. Nancy married a guy from Australia, so you're going to hear an amazing Australian accent. You're welcome. I think we could listen to it all day long. He is a phenomenal guy. This guy has like a story, like both Nancy, if you ever get a chance to chat with Nancy and Steve, like they just have like lived these really big lives before they moved into this stage of their careers and their business. But they both had worked on yachts together. Steve was a chef, and they've actually been on these yachts with millionaires and billionaires. Both of them share the same exact story of the one person that they have gotten to hang out with that they both love, and it's Denzel Washington. How cool is that? So now we have Steve, who he has actually left the yachting business so that he can be more present for his child and his family. And as you guys know, it's very similar to our stories, right? Some of us left the school system so we could be more present for our kids. And he's now moved into the health insurance world. So today he's going to be sharing all about, what do we need to think about when we are doing, thinking about our health insurance. So thanks for joining us, Steve. Welcome.
Thanks so much, Joanne. Thank you for having me here. And I really enjoy talking to your audience and educating them a little bit more on health insurance and how it impacts me and them.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Wonderful. So glad. All right. So you guys share, like I only shared like a little teeny bit, but how did you get into this whole like health insurance realm to begin with?
Yeah, really good question. So to sort of back it up, I left school, started as a chef, worked my way around, worked in really high-end five-star hotels, worked for an airline for 5 years, flying internationally as a food journalist as well at the same time. And then I found myself coming into yachting, becoming executive chef on these big, large yachts you see. I'm in Florida, so you see them around a lot down here in South Florida, up in New York, but mainly in the Mediterranean. And I met my wife along the way in there after a few years later. And we just decided that we wanted to settle here in Florida, and I still was working on boats and doing the chefing thing. And some time ago, I just had an opportunity, speaking to a friend of mine who was in the health insurance industry, and realized it's something that was open to me, mm-hmm. and something that I could actually be a contribution to. And look, I've been in customer service my whole life. I've been in the service of people my whole life, so it's not that different. Now, coming out of yachting was really interesting because we had medical marine insurance. It was fully comprehensive. Coming into the real world of, insurance in the USA, it's a bit of a minefield. So, and it's amazing. So once I started to learn about it, I really loved the idea of it, how to grasp it, how to educate people a little bit more, and how to help people navigate through the pitfalls and the maze that is health insurance. So, it's been a bit of a journey. I love what I do. I tend to help. I speak to people all down the phone. I help a lot of people through the ACA or Medicare, partial COBRA, a lot of private health insurance and things like that. So a lot of the time I'm just being a contribution to people, which is ultimately what I love doing myself. So
I love that. And that's why he's here, you guys, to be able to help you guys as tutors be able to figure out and navigate this new world, because you were always just kind of given something and you went with it, or most of us, and especially in the teaching world, I always had a better insurance than my husband. And so my husband was actually on my insurance. But now that I had turned into, tutoring on my own, I switched over to his insurance. And I know that not everybody has that same capability to be able to do that. And this comes up a lot. I'm never able to answer those kinds of questions. So what's the first step when they start thinking about private health insurance? What are some of those first steps they need to be thinking about?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of people tend to there's a few different ways. You can speak to your friends, your family. That seems to be, a system of referral base, if you like, where you get to know what are the type of networks. So the networks are really important. The larger the network, the better the coverage you're going to have. It also affects the doctors you're going to go to. It affects the benefits you're going to get. And then you have all your different types of network types. You know, you have your HMOs, which are typically group coverage, or what you might have as a teacher. Now, they tend to be state, coverage. You have a team of doctors and hospitals and medical providers that actually are in network that you have to use. You'll have to get a referral from that doctor to go see a specialist. But it is great. It's in network, and it tends to be really good. Group insurance is fantastic. Now, you also have EPOs as well, which is more of a county-wide coverage, has a little bit more flexibility with specialist referrals. And you also have POS, which is a hybrid of EPO and HMOs. Now, the gold standard, I suppose, now is PPOs, which is, it's usually a national coverage. You get to pick your primary care physician and also your specialist. So it opens you up to a greater level of network coverage and a greater level of coverage for your doctors. So, for instance, worst case scenario, you have, some horrible thing like cancer, stroke, heart attack, or something like that. If you needed to go to a doctor in California, Colorado, or something like that, you will not have to get a referral. You can actually call them up and see if they're available. So that's the main sort of thing. Now, with private healthcare, a lot of people also go online. Online can be good and bad. So if you go online, you look up health insurance, private, how do I apply for, whatever the case is, you usually get to a landing page, you put your information in, and if anybody's ever looked for a car and they go, I want this particular car, this and that, they press enter, they start getting 100 phone calls from all the car dealers. Well, that's the pitfall of going online for insurance, because you have that. Now, another pitfall is that you will get people like me who, your information might get sent to my office, and then I'll, get your information, give you a call, set up a time for an appointment, what you apply for, listen to what you like. You'll also get telemarketers that are setting other people up, other agents, which is an issue. And you also get a lot of short-term insurance giving you a call. Now, short-term insurance, just as it says, it's short-term. It should be just a fill in between your insurance. A lot of times it's capped at, a maximum, a benefit. And there's other restrictions, like they may give you doctor visits and things like that. But most of the time, almost every part of the time, you're out of network, so you'll be paying a larger cost. So the most important thing is, if you do get a call from a health insurance agent, is to ask them to send you the state license where you're living. Now, I'm licensed in 31 states around the US. So, they're the only people I speak to, are the people that are in my states, because that's where I'm licensed in. So the first thing I would say is, if you're going to get a call after putting your information online, is to ask for their state license. That way, you're talking to professionals first and foremost. So that seems to be the way, like going through with, friends, get their opinions, what they use. It really matters, especially if they live in your area. Some people love United Healthcare in some areas. Some people love Cigna in their area. And that's because the provider network is larger. So, yeah, that's pretty much how people do it. Now, and you can call up numbers and things like that, but you really need to speak to a professional like me, who's a licensed health insurance agent, that we've done our training in our course and the state certified us. And that way you're going to get the best benefits and the real truth of what you're looking at.
Mm-hmm. And we're getting like all of these amazing comments out there. Oh my God, Steve is amazing. I think you have a big fan out there.
It's probably my wife, Nancy.
Yes, it is. It is.
I love it.
Oh, I love the support. Oh, amazing. We love you, Nancy. So you definitely want to make sure that you want to know who you're talking to. And I think that's the scary thing. When you start going online, it all of a sudden gets muddied on who exactly are you talking to. So that's really great advice to be able to find out from the other people that are around you. What is it that you use? Have that conversation, be open with it with other people. And then whoever you're working with, it's always a great idea just to ask them for their state licensure, so that okay, this is like a credible guy who can be able to help me. We wouldn't even think to ask that, which isn't that funny, because like parents never ask us to see like any credentials or anything like that. They never ask that question. So I would assume that it's kind of like the same thing. People don't know to ask that question, so they don't. So you definitely want to make sure that you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, in the world of what we live in the moment, where I'm doing Zoom calls all day, I do screen sharing with my clients and prospects all day, and you just get used to it. And with the level of networking in person that we used to do, it was great because you already get credibility. You know that person who they are. I generally send my business card as well with my license that has a picture of me. That you can throw darts at later on if you want to. It's up to you. But it sort of gives you an idea. And what you can do is with my national producer number, and all state health insurance agents have one, you can literally Google that number and find out who exactly I am and that I'm licensed in that area as well. So it lends to credibility, and it also reassurance that you're talking to the right person that's going to look after you.
Yeah, and somebody who really is caring. Like, and I love that about you. I got that big, huge sense when I talked with you the other day, just about how much you just really care about helping people. Yes, you're doing this as a career, but you want to make sure that they ultimately are making the best decisions and their choices to help them. So when you work with people individually, what are some questions that you ask them so that you're able to meet their needs in the best way possible?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, first and foremost is when, as a health insurance agent, what you're looking at is the area, the zip code. So there's different insurance and networks available there, and also different pricing. The first and the next part I do is I just share with them there's two different ways we can go with health insurance. One is the public, which would be the ACA, Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, Exchange, Marketplace. People have a lot of names for it. And the next would be the private market. Now, the ACA, the public market, is based on your income. So a lot of time the question is, can you qualify for a government subsidy? So if they say yes, then I almost immediately go to the public market. And look, that's through a government website called healthcare.gov. I use, and most agents use, a website called healthsherpa.com. It's like the Travelocity for health insurance agents and people. It's a free website. The upside to going to Health Sherpa is that you're able to see all the plans first before you go to healthcare.gov. And then the other way around with healthcare.gov, you have to put your information in. It takes about 15 or 20 minutes before you see your subsidy. Now, if their income is good, and sometimes, the goalposts have moved since this administration has moved the ACA through to August the 15th. Okay. So what happens is now is the income level, you can have a higher income now to go on the ACA. Now, I'm sort of saying a little bit about the ACA. It's wonderful for a couple of things. If you're low income or you have a pre-existing condition, and that might be diabetes, you've just had a back operation, liver kidney issues, that's where you want to go, because it's called guaranteed issue insurance. That means you're guaranteed to get on that. Everybody's covered in there. Now, if you want to look at the private healthcare, it's actually based on your health. So if you have one of these pre-existing conditions, a lot of the time it can disqualify you depending on how long you had that pre-existing condition, whether there's been a time period that you're clear and complete, or if you're on medication, prescription medication, that you are, controlled, they call it, which is usually a year or two after you start that medication. So if you're healthy, there's a really good option with private healthcare because it tends to have better benefits and it can be less expensive. And you can build up what you want through it. It's like a la carte menu in a restaurant where you can add things, whether it's dental or vision and things like that. The ACA, you tend to have a lot of choice, but you're looking at high deductibles. Maybe the network's not that big. Maybe you're getting one of those EPOs or PEOs or the HMOs versus a PPO network, which is a national coverage. So there's a lot of different things you can do with it. But, one of the first things I say is, are you eligible for government assistance? If you are, then we'll look at that direction first, and then we may look at pre-existing conditions and go to the private market. And then it's based on your height and weight, your age, if you smoke tobacco products, if you have high blood pressure or any prescription medication, if it's been controlled. For instance, if yesterday you got on high blood pressure medication, you would have to be a year on that medication to go on underwritten insurance on most coverages, not all, but on most. So There's a few parameters, and then of course surgeries, hospitalizations, any diagnosis that you have that affects you things. So there's a lot of variables that happen. But honestly, this is a conversation that can happen in a quick 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's very easy to lay it down. And once you move through those parameters, it's really easy to find what the individual would like, based on their price and their benefits. So.
Oh my God, I love that. It's almost like you're able to just like get right to the heart of the issue right away and be like, okay, yep, I know which one's going to be work perfect for you. That is like worth gold right there.
Yes.
And for those of you guys that are taking a look at this, I have put, if you guys are like, you know what, I need to have that 5-minute conversation with Steve, I have put the link inside of the description. If you're on YouTube, you'll find it right there. It's under links talked about, and you'll be able to see his Calendly link, and you'll be able to schedule that free 5-minute conversation where he will be able to figure out what it is specifically that you need. And I think that's so helpful, because I think we don't know what questions to ask, right? Like in the beginning, and you already know the questions to ask and then can point us in the right direction of what's going to be the best thing based off of that.
Exactly. And the thing about this as well, it's not really a trap. It's just to find what is the best option for you. And, half my day is finding the best option for an individual or family, self-employed, is actually to go somewhere else, whether it's the ACA or some other insurance, group coverage or something like that. Group coverage, for instance, is phenomenal. It's very hard in the private health insurance market to beat that. That's why as a teacher, if you can, my wife, when she left a public school that she was at, she took a 2-year leave of absence. So she had COBRA, or she actually had coverage for 2 years. When that finished, she got COBRA for 18 months, which is the general thing. Now, it differs from state to state, but it's generally 18 months. So with her, it gave her the ability to, and I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but she was one of those individuals that she just found, coming out of the system, that she had a little bit of high blood pressure. So that immediately put a mark on her medical history. So typically what happens is, let's just say you're applying for health insurance in the private sector. We go through, ask all the questions, make sure that we've crossed the T's and dotted the I's, and that we've written down all the information that's happened to you, if you've had surgeries or anything like this. Then we would submit the application to the insurance company. They generally look at it's called the IntelliScript records, which is your prescription records. So if we put everything down and everything looks good, then the underwriters, now they're the people that assess the risk, whether you go on the insurance or not. As long as we put that down, most of the time, if everything's well and good, it goes through to the next application stage. Now, if that's not put down, then they go through and they pull a report called a Medical Information Bureau report, an MIB report. And that's when they dig a little bit deeper into your medical history. If we didn't put everything down and they find something there, they'll actually go through to the stage of called a ATS, which is an attending physician statement. So that all these little things happen. And that's why it's so important to speak to a licensed health insurance agent that knows how this is. Now, if there's concerns about telling an agent what's happening, you're protected by what's called the HIPAA laws. Mm-hmm. So they're a confidentiality law, just like a lawyer has with their client, that we can't talk about any of these things. So if a client says to me, look, I didn't tell you initially, but I actually just had a back operation 6 months ago, in Cuba or, some foreign country, whatever the case is, those are things that you can tell me and know that I'm going to have your interests looked after, but I also have to look after mine and the insurance interests to make sure that you're covered fully. Because if something like that happened, we didn't have you covered, a year down the track, this injury comes up, they will deny the claim. So the most important thing is to be honest and upfront, and not to bring it down. It's just about being honest about what's happening, and that way we can help you get the best coverage that you need for what you've got.
And the thing is, there is coverage for every single scenario.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so now it just comes down to which is going to be the one that's going to fit you the best, works with you financially. So tell me more about COBRA, because you had mentioned that that you're covered. Is it like all states where you're covered for 18 months after you do leave your teaching job that you can be covered under COBRA?
It's a good question, and I actually did my due diligence on this morning. It can be all states, and I won't say 100% because I don't want to be tripped up, but it is the law, U.S. law, that if you do leave your workplace or get asked to leave or whatever it is, you're covered for 18 months. Now, what that means is that you may well be, generally with COBRA, as a teacher, I know my wife was with Broward County Schools, which is really good coverage through Aetna, and for her, for a COBRA, it's costing her a similar amount of money that she was paying before, which was around about $650, $700 a month. Mm-hmm. Now, generally, when people leave, if it's some other schools or if it's a different workplace, it's usually doubled. Mm. So in that case, it would be $1,400. So a month. Now, this is where the pitfalls are with this, is that if I know that some years ago we were looking at putting myself and my 8-year-old son Jacob onto her insurance. Now, it was going to be astronomically expensive. So I speak to people all the time that are on COBRA, but it's so expensive to put their spouse and their dependents on that they come to me and say, listen, can we look at an option for me? So I go that direction. But yes, COBRA is usually 18 months. It's mandated by law, and it's a really good option because it's like McDonald's. You know what you're going to get when you go, when you have it, and it's usually pretty good coverage from my understanding.
And do you have to apply for it?
It should be automatically once you're actually in your own exchange, in your own, if you're a teacher in your own school and things like that, it should be transferred immediately when you leave that school. But as with everything, I always tell people, do your due diligence, speak to your human resources department, your administration area in your school, and make sure that you are covered and that you're all signed up. And another thing, I'm dropping my wife in here again, but when she started COBRA, she didn't tick the box that had her dental coverage changed, carried over. So after a few months, she realized she didn't have dental. So dental is really, really good. It's something that I work with all the time, dental and vision and things like that. But there's always waiting periods. You can usually get your cleaning, your x-rays straight away. Even sometimes some of them offer deep cleaning. There's usually like a 6-month waiting period for basic things like extractions, like, fillings and things. And then the big stuff like braces, Invisalign, or root canals, there's usually a 12-month waiting period. So it's very important that you look through that documentation. And sometimes, look, a lot of time I'll speak to people and they'll say, look, I'm looking for insurance. I've got this, and that. And I'll say, look, can you email me your summary of benefits? I'll have a look at what you got. So I can tell them then, apples to apples, if the insurance that I'm looking at for their location is better or not. And, all the time I'll say, look, if yours is better, stick with what you got, and then let's revisit that in 18 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of like people who already have, there's some people that are probably watching this right now that are thinking, wait, I already have insurance, but I don't know if I have the best one. You're able to have a conversation with them as well and be able to kind of analyze that quickly to know, are you on the best plan?
Yeah, absolutely. And good health insurance agents will do that. A lot of it's also got to do with, like, if you're paying $500 a month, generally you don't want to pay more than $500 a month if you're going to something else. So it gives me a picture of what you've got, the coverage you have. So at least I can say, listen, that same coverage is going to cost you X amount of money, but we could actually get better coverage for maybe a little bit more or a little bit less, or let's shave some of this stuff off. There's some really great plans that have built-in supplemental insurance for accident coverage. So you might already have accident coverage on your policy that you're paying $30 a month for. Well, it's already built in this other plan, so let's take that off. So the most important thing is to reach out to a person like me, and of course I'm experienced, I know what I'm doing, I know what I'm talking about, and that way showing your summary of benefits to me is going to actually enable you to get the best value out of what you're doing. And look, with insurance, a lot of people see it as a burden. It's not. It's a deduction if you're in your own business. It's a deduction for your business. So it's not a luxury item at all. It's actually something that is awesome that can supplement your life, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. So I think that's such an important way to look at it, that it's a deduction from your business expenses. Like, that's one of the things that can be, so then you don't get taxed, on that. It's actually a business expense. They can put that down in the line.
Exactly, and look, and I always have to say when I talk about tax, I'm not a tax attorney, I'm not an accountant, full disclosure and things like this. But what I do personally is I claim. So myself and my son are on private health insurance with dental. These aren't prescription glasses. I use them for computers because my eyes get sore. And what I do is ours is around about $700 a month as well. Now I claim almost all of that. Well, I claim all of it as tax deduction, and I end up, getting most of it claimed at the end of the year. So it doesn't cost me much a month. And that's the power of having your own company. And if you're a tutor and you're setting yourself up as, in your own business, whether it's a, LLC or whatever you're doing, it's a really amazing thing. And you can put your whole family on it. And if you get employees, you can set it up that way. So
Yep.
and that's something that you want to talk to personally with your CPA.
Mm-hmm.
I do have a tax calculator that can help with that. But honestly, 100% of the time, you speak to somebody that you trust who's a CPA. I'm not a CPA, and they're going to help you realize how much of a saving, really good health insurance can be.
Yeah, for sure. And what does it cost to not have insurance? I think that's kind of a question that needs to be had because, a lot of people do see that $600 or $700 a month coming on out as a cost, but really, what are the true costs of not having your insurance in place?
Yeah, and that, awesome question. It's very hard to measure that cost. If you're walking off the street into a hospital, the onus on them is to patch you together and get you out the door. A friend of mine some years ago was in a terrible car accident. Somebody passed during that accident. He survived. He was in hospital in a coma for 6 months, came out of it. He woke up within a couple of days him walking. They pushed him outside and he had a massive, medical bill. So, it can crush you financially. That's the worst thing about it. I remember watching a show with my family a few weeks ago, 60 Minutes, on a family that lost their husband in COVID. He spent 6 months in the hospital, and they got a $4 million bill for the insurance. Now, the insurance company paid that because they had insurance. So if you can imagine how weighing that would be is if you lost someone that you cared about, and then you've got this massive bill. So it's very hard to measure the impact that it would have you without insurance. But realistically, for the peace of mind, for having coverage and speaking to someone like myself who can actually steer you in the direction, is if you're starting your business and your income is not there and stuff, the ACA is a wonderful, wonderful opportunity for you to get there. Speak to someone like me, and I can actually guide you that direction. And then we can look at later on when your business starts to come up, you get over that income level without a subsidy, and that's when we can switch you over to, private healthcare. And there's little tricks to do as well. Like, for instance, I've had clients that have wanted to go on private healthcare and they used to be on some medication, but the doctor took them off, but they hadn't signed that medication off when, on their actual notes. So when the insurance company looks into their medical information, they see, well, you're on these 5 medications. Oh, I stopped taking them a while ago. Well, then you have to get a letter from the doctor. And there's the little tricks that an agent like myself can actually tell you about that make sure that it can set you up more powerfully in what your decision making is going to be, whether it's now or after COBRA or somewhere in between.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see, it's going to cost you financially not to have it. It's also going to cost you emotionally because of the anxiety that is going to be produced because of it. It's inevitable, right?
Right.
And it's going to give you this sense of hope and security that you're going to get the best prices for what you need to be able to get in order to be able to live the quality of life that you have today.
Absolutely. And I'll give you an idea. If you go to an urgent care, I went to one down the road a couple of years ago, it was $175 just to walk in the door, let alone prescriptions and things like that. The right medical insurance, whether you have a copay, deductible, some insurance are hybrid insurance, where it gets billed directly to the insurance company. They're usually PPO plans. And then, there's benefits and discounts within network that you have that you may not be out of pocket for anything. So, at the end of the day, it's absolute peace of mind. COVID has been on the front of people's mind. Whatever belief you think about COVID and things like that, it's a scary thing to know that it could happen to you or someone you care about. So if you care about somebody, and you have that ability to have a chat with them about making sure that they're covered with insurance, that's something that you're making a stand for that person, that they get that coverage that they need, and it's very important.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And anything can happen anytime, any place to absolutely anybody. None of us are prone to, even just like spraining our ankle as you like walk out your door to go grab your lunch, right? I mean, just anything at any point in time. And so if you're not protecting yourself, you're really doing yourself a disservice, and you're limiting your opportunities for a future at the end of the day.
Yeah. And like, knowledge like this, I always say to my clients, if you can walk or drive to a ER or, a hospital or whatever, go to an urgent care. A lot of the hospitals can charge 8 to 10 times the price that you would get in the urgent care for simply the flu or a scratch or something. There's really good products out at the moment. There's 3 companies in the US. One of them is called MD Live that I use all the time. It's out of Florida, and it's telemedicine. So telemedicine is this wonderful thing where you can actually, you download the app to your phone, put your information in, and you put your family's information. So if something happens to you, if you're traveling anywhere in the US, because it's national, you can say, for instance, 6 months ago, I ride bikes, I cycle for exercise. So I came off my bike, thinking that I was not going fast enough, and I was. Slid, cut my leg up on my shoulder, and after about 10 days, I realized it wasn't healing properly. So got onto MD Live, took some pictures through the app of the scrapes that I had that were infected, put that information in. Within 5-10 minutes, a doctor called me, and you can either choose a video conference call or an audio call if you feel like, if maybe you're in your dressing gown or your bad hair day or something like that. And what they can do is they can then decide whether you go to an urgent care or a hospital, or if you just need prescription medication, they actually can send it to you wherever you are. And this service is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 2 a.m. on Christmas Eve. And they can also, there's a service that you can send the prescription medication to you for. So in my case, they sent me an oral antibiotic and also antibiotic cream that I put on my leg. Within 5 or 6 days, it was starting to clear up. So, with people being worried about COVID, having health insurance will also give you the ability to have telemedicine, so you don't actually have to go to a doctor. They can come to you. So there's a lot of good benefits that are around that are really new. There's a lot of good things that are new in health insurance too.
Yeah. Do you cover all the other kinds of insurance as well, like dental or vision or those kinds of things? I know you mentioned it before.
Yeah, and we sort of build a plan. So I always start off with health, and like I said, it's based on really height, weight, how healthy you are, prescriptions, things like this. And then we look at ancillary things like if you want to have income protection, if you want to have accident protection, dental, vision. We do offer supplemental insurance, and what that looks like, that might be accidental insurance. A lot of these plans now have associations that are pinned to them, so they give you great services like, tax talk, discounts on different services that you have. And like I said, the telemedicine is a real, for me, I love talking about telemedicine because it's helped me, it's helped my wife before. And, nobody really, when they're working, especially you're setting up a business, you're online tutoring, you're talking to kids, parents all the time, you're trying to do that. Now I have to go to the doctor for an hour because I've got the flu or the common cold or something. Well, now you can actually pick up a phone in your break. I don't know, with my wife, Nancy, she's running to the kitchen, having a bit of cereal or running out or something, and I'm doing the same. We're all squeezing as much time as we can into our day. It really gives you more time having this ability. Yeah. So, I mean, there are a lot of, we build a head-to-toe coverage with who I'm working for. I'm an independent health insurance agent as well. So my job is to educate as well and to advise. And then I have the ability to work with almost anybody I want. And that also depends on what state that person's looking for coverage is in, and also the restrictions they have or don't have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do you ever do anything with business insurance? Because I always know people ask questions like, should I get insurance for my business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, group coverage is great. There's a few states that are a little tricky. Florida just stopped being tricky, which was great. And generally with me is if I'm doing group insurance, I can get very good coverage at competitive pricing up to like 10, maximum 15 employees. Once you get over that, then you're looking at a bigger market, bigger company that is going to be able to do that, because you can buy in a large share. So what I do with group coverage, I'll join a massive association that gives you those group benefits at a lesser price. But as I said, once you get over 15, it's really worthwhile. And I have, referral partners that I recommend as well that I've dealt with before that have helped me. I'm in different networking groups that sort of allow me to have, like a Swiss Army knife of choices for referrals for people. So if I trust somebody, I'll refer them to them and set them up really powerfully about what the person's looking for. But yeah, up to 15 people is great, and love group insurance is fantastic. So
what about for someone who like they're solopreneur? They do not have anybody working for them. It's just themselves. Do they need business insurance?
Oh, that's what you meant for like commercial business insurance. Yeah, I deal with just health. But and I do have, I said referral partners for commercial business insurance as well. But if you're looking at like just a person getting health insurance, absolutely. 60% of the market is actually individuals in private healthcare.
Yeah, but they don't necessarily. So we're talking mostly about health. So anybody who has that question about like, well, do I need business insurance for my business? It's a different topic. That's to protect your business versus this is to protect you as an individual in your health and to provide you that health care that you need so that you can get that. And I think Jacob has shown up in your wife's office because I see a hi dad on there.
Oh, really?
So, hi, Jacob. How's it going, man? How's it going, dude?
Jacob, you need to get back to school. That's how it is.
Back to school, Jacob. You know what you need to do. Dad said you could watch us on replay with him later.
Exactly. We talk about this. Come on.
I love it. Oh, so funny. And you know what? Our kids love watching this stuff that we're on. My kids were actually, they were stalking me the other day.
Oh, wow.
They're like, yeah, we found all this stuff about you. I'm like, you did? Tell me what you found. They're like, oh, we saw this image of you like standing in front of a group of people. I'm like, oh, I know the image you found. I'm like, that's when I won an award for my book. And they're like, yeah.
And that's awesome. It's such an amazing window. I used to do a lot of sort of get out of healthcare thing. I used to do a lot of chef competitions, and I have lots of little plastic trophies and things like this over the years. And it is really weird at first seeing yourself on camera. But no, I know how successful you are. And that's why I'm really appreciative that I'm on here sort of educating your audience at the same time. So
oh my gosh, it's so helpful to them. I mean, just to be able to hear somebody else share exactly what those steps are to make it easy for them and take the stress of what am I going to do? Because I know how scary it can be when you're first even making the decision to leave, because it feels like your teaching job is secure. And I got to tell you, there's nothing secure about your teaching job. If they want to fire you at any point in time, they will find a way to do it, right? There's nothing secure in that. That's you have the ability to lose your job. And so there's this fear of I'm going to lose my job. Like even when I was doing a great job, I still had a fear, an underlying fear, and I always felt it. I felt like I was going to lose my job. Like the principal would call me to the office and I'd be like, oh crud, I'm going to lose my job. Like, no, she just needed to talk to me. But like, there was always this underlying fear. It always existed. And so now, when you're starting to think about, do I leave my secure teaching job to move into tutoring? I'd have to say making 6 figures a year is way more secure to me and my family than working for the pennies that I was working with for the educational system. So
yeah, absolutely. And in any big company, there's also political things that are happening within administration and things like that. So, I mean, I know for me, I've been a chef, a professional chef, more than 30 years. And when I moved into health insurance, and this is my business, it's my company, and it's such a freedom that you have. It's a little scary, gets you on the court with life, and it allows you to sort of be open to other things. And once you start meeting people like yourself or myself or professionals that have done this before, and also can empower you with what's next and how it is, it takes all that negative energy off your shoulder. You feel a little bit more alive. It's wonderful. So the more information you get, the more you learn, the more you can listen to Joanne. I know my wife has really been impacted, and I'm very grateful for it. So no, it's wonderful.
I love it. Okay, you just said like the most amazing thing, get you back on the court of life. I love that.
Yeah.
I'm like a huge, I've already taken like 2 pages of notes because I was like, this is okay. I don't know anything about this. But I think that's great, because me not knowing anything is the same kind of situation that I think other teachers will find themselves in. So really it seems like to me a simple 3-step system. So I always like to break things down simply.
Right.
1, if you're leaving the school system, make sure that you are in contact with the district so that you can make sure you have that COBRA in place if that's what is needed. 2, once that is over, make sure you connect with somebody like Steve so that he can help you with those next steps. And 3, just do what they tell you to do. And it's set.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I agree, because sometimes people overthink it. I've done it myself. When I left the marine industry, I called up a friend of mine. I used to play squash, which is sort of like racquetball with a smaller ball and a longer racket. And he helped me get some short-term insurance. Now, the more I got into insurance, the more study I did, I realized that was perfect for what I needed. But from a long-term point of view, it didn't make any sense at all. So having a professional that you got in your pocket, and I give out my personal cell phone to all my clients, and I'm on the dial. I mean, sometimes I get calls Sunday night, Saturday night. That's my service. I call it white glove service. You need me, I'm there. Text me. If I'm not doing something with my son or my wife, I'll get back to you usually straight away, and then we'll set up a time to address any concerns you have. And it could be as simple as, banking details that didn't go through or something like that. Or I had a client that just moved from North Carolina to Tennessee. Their network changed, and they were waiting for their cards. So I was able to contact that insurance company, get them to email some cards directly to them. So when the physical cards take 7 to 14 days, they have that. So having somebody who is in your pocket when you need them is really beneficial. And in business, you usually have people in your phone that you can rely on. So I like to think that I'm one of those people you can rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys have no idea like how amazing Nancy and Steve are. They're so incredible. I think I could just move on into their house tomorrow and just live with them and just hang out with them. They got a beautiful pool out there. I've seen it many times. I'm all jealous. They live in Florida. You guys live in Pompano Beach?
Yeah, Pompano Beach, which is, about 35 minutes north of Miami Beach, which is awesome. Miami always feels like going away for a holiday. It's so different in a lot of areas, culturally wise and stuff. But where we are, it's wonderful. I mean, I'll give you an idea. The reason we're here is in the yachting industry in Fort Lauderdale, which is sort of the suburb in between Miami and Pompano. It's that sort of the epicenter of yachting in the world, on this side of the world, I should say. And it's just a really nice area. Parks. I'm not selling Pompano at the moment or anything like that, but for us, it's a good lifestyle. We also love the mountains. Nancy, I don't know if she ever told you, she was a professional snowboarder before. And so we have FOMO of everybody in the mountains at the moment, whether it's Colorado, Utah, whatever, skiing, snowboarding, things like that. So, but we also have a very nice life, and the both of us are really big into giving back, and that's what we do. We love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. And she was telling me about that's on her bucket list is on my bucket list is my kids are now at the age where they're going off to college and they're moving into their next stage of life. And I know that around the corner is they're going to have families, right? And they're going to have kids. So my goal is I want to be able to make more than enough money that whenever I want to be able to hop onto a plane so I can see my grandbabies, I can. And your wife put on her list, I want to be able to go to like Colorado 5 times a year to be able to do my snowboarding.
Absolutely, yeah. And the last time we were back there, we had a pretty cool story. She was still working on boats, and her boss she was a chief stewardess on a yacht for a local businessman, and he flew us up by jet to Glenwood Springs, which was the closest airport because Aspen was snowed in, and we stayed with them. It was really nice because we worked for very wealthy people and movie stars and rock stars and stuff for a long time, but you're in their world, but you're not. There's that next level, but we actually got to feel that, and it was awesome. So we always say to our friends, we're going back we're coming this year. And then this year was going to be the year, and of course, COVID happened. And look, and this is another reason why you need to have coverage to bring it back to that. Full circle is if you do enjoy these adventure sports, if you do enjoy those sort of things, you have to make sure broken legs happen, broken wrists happen if you're a snowboarder on the mountains all the time.
Yeah.
You want to make sure you're covered. And a broken arm, I'll tell you an idea. In a hospital, a broken arm can cost you between $6,000 to $8,000 if it's a bad break. So that's another reason you have to have coverage, because if you're living a fun lifestyle of adventure, things like that, even as we're getting older, you want to make sure your kids have that ability to have that coverage. But we'll get up there again. Fingers crossed. Next year we'll everything will be working out fine, and we're going to make that happen, because having my son snowboarding and skiing is something I want to do, and he's a bit of he does martial arts. He's very adventurous as well. So
yeah, well, and you bring up another point of kids as well, because kids are going to get hurt. I have been in the hospital at least once with each of my children.
Yes.
I don't know anybody who hasn't been to the hospital at least once for some kind of injury, sickness, or illness with their child. And
yes.
Our children are all in this big equation, aren't they?
Exactly. And you feel helpless if you're not able to get what they need. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day, because my son's been very lucky, other than, a bunch of bug bites that he got when he was on a scouting trip in the water where he got, sea lice bit him up and things like this. I mean, I give you an idea. If I didn't have health insurance coverage, and obviously I'm from Australia, you can tell on my accent, you said at the start, I broke my back as a kid. I broke my left arm, my left wrist. I've broken all my fingers and most of my toes. I played rugby, and it's one of those things that happen. Yep. I've broken my nose a few times. I've had so many different injuries that if I didn't have coverage here and that happened to my son, we'd be financially doomed, because it's the emotional crutches when you go to a doctor. It's the same as when you go to a veterinarian. You need this procedure, it's going to cost you $10,000 or $100,000. You just do it.
Oh, they don't even talk money. They just say, here's the next doctor that you need to go to. And then you get that bill and you're like, whoa, wait, what just happened? Like, you don't even have the money talk with the doctor, right? Yeah. It's the insurance companies, if you even have any insurance companies, that are kind of doing the talking back and forth. And
yeah, and this is the thing as well with the proper agent as well. I speak to medical facilities and hospitals every single day, because clients of mine will get an outrageous bill that they're supposed to be covered for because somebody in administration didn't do that. And busy lives, that's the last thing you want to do. It takes over your life. So give me a call. I'm the one that liaises between. That's my job as a health insurance agent, to make sure that you're covered, and that if you have got these big bills, to find out why. And then usually it's something's happened along the way. A button hasn't been pushed, or it hasn't been loaded up. And that's a part of the peace of mind of having somebody like myself who can help you and guide you through those places that you don't know. I mean, I love cars, and I'm not a mechanic. So if I go to a local mechanic, I want to know that person has got my best interest, is not ripping me off at the same time. Yeah. So, it's another point, to have health insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to give us an inside look of what those next steps would look like. If you guys are interested in getting that 5 free minute consultation with Steve, go to that Calendly link, click on that, and he'll be able to help you navigate this really tricky area. And I trust Steve with all of my heart that he's going to make the best next right move for you guys. So thank you so much for sharing today, Steve. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. It's really awesome to be here. Thank you so much for having me.